Rama,
Hare Rama,
Rama Rama,
Rama Rama,
Hare Hare.
Hare Hare.
So, welcome all of you in this wonderful festival that we will be celebrating all day today. And part of the festival is the glorification of ISKCON, the 50th anniversary. So, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta, our founder Acharya Shrila Prabhupada Ji ki.
Jai.
So most of you all know, worldwide, the Hare Krishna movement is known as ISKCON. Or some people cannot remember the word ISKCON, they say the Hare Krishnas. Am I correct? Anywhere you go in the world, this is amazing. Actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is non-different, who is Swayam, who appeared as Radha Krishna's combination about 500 years ago in West Bengal. And he had predicted, he had said, Prithvi cha akhil nagaradigram sarvatra hoy mora naam prachar. Meaning, in every town and village, my name will be spread. And Srila Prabhupada, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, is that great personality who fulfilled Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's prediction. And he did it through this movement called the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So the abbreviation being ISKCON, ISKCON. Now, to speak about a great personality like Srila Prabhupada and his movement in 15-20 minutes is impossible. But I will try to highlight some points here, and hopefully we will all appreciate this movement very much. I'm sure a lot of the guests that are present are familiar with ISKCON, and sometimes some of you all may have come here for the first time as a Krishna temple, and you all are welcome. But we have to understand what does ISKCON stand behind. And for that we have to go a little bit into history. Srila Prabhupada, before he became a sannyasi, before he became a renounced order of life, he was in the Grihastha ashram, just a family man like most of us. And during that period, he was actually working in Calcutta as a pharmacist. And he worked for the Bose laboratories. So one day, when he was on his way home after work, one of his dear friend, caught him on the street and says, "Come, Abhay." Prabhupada's name given by his parents was Abhay Charan. Abhay Charan was the given name by his father, Gaur Mohan Dev. And so his friend said, "Abhay, I want to take you and I want you to meet one sadhu who is giving a pravachan, who is giving a lecture in a terrace in somebody's house." So Abhay Babu, at that time, he says, "No, I'm not interested. My father used to entertain so many sadhus. He was so naive that sometimes the sadhus also, although they were not really in character by sadhu, but even then my father used to entertain them just because of the dress. So I have seen, I have to go home and take care of my own seva." Actually, he had very nice small deities known as Radha Madan Mohan, given by his own father. So he used to do his own seva at home. So I don't have time for all that. So his friend pulled him and says, "Abhay, only 5 minutes. I request you to come and this is not an ordinary sadhu. I want you to meet this person." And then he is actually having a tug of war on the street. Abhay wants to go home and he's catching his sleep, his friend, and he's trying to take him. So then Abhay Baba said, okay, only 5 minutes. Shri Radha Vrindavan Chandra ki, Nitai Gaur Sundar ki, Shri Nath ji ki. So he says, okay, only 5 minutes I'll go with you. So when he arrived at that place in Calcutta, on number 1 Ulta Dhamma Street, there was one very lion-like looking sannyasi, very grave, great personality. And when Abhay Babu with his friend came and got seated, like everybody is seated here, and he came and was seated somewhere in the back, as soon as the discourse was complete, the pravachan was complete, this sannyasi looked at Abhay Babu and said that you seem to be a very educated person. You should preach the glories of Mahaprabhu and the glories of our Vedic culture, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, to the English-speaking world. And Abhay Babu was taken aback. He was a little shocked that this sadhu is saying this to me. So when he got a chance, after the lecture, he asked one question, very relevant question. This we are talking about the 1920s, somewhere during that time, 1922 I think, if I'm not mistaken. India was under the British Raj, correct? India was under the British rule. India was not free. So Abhay Babu, our Srila Prabhupada, was actually in the Gandhi movement. He had actually taken to the lifestyle wearing khadi and giving up everything that was English. He gave up everything, including his convocation, which was bestowed to him by the Scottish Churches College, being English. He even rejected that, because that was called the Swaraj movement that was started at that time. So he asked this question to this sadhu. He asked this question, and the sadhu's name was His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhant Saraswati Thakur. He asked Saraswati Thakur ji that Swami ji, what you are saying may be correct, but right now our duty is, our foremost duty is to free India from the slavery of the British. Who is going to listen to this message of Krishna consciousness or this message of Mahaprabhu when right now we are slaves and our first and foremost duty is to free our country? Now that sounds pretty impressive, right? Something similar that we have heard, especially those who have heard Bhagavad Gita, how Arjuna starts arguing with Krishna about not fighting and giving so many reasons. So similarly, Prabhupada, Abhay Day is in a very submissive mood, he puts forward this question. And the answer that was given by this sadhu is saying, are we really free? Are we really free? We are talking about freedom. Birth, death, old age and disease. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. These 4 things are forced upon us. Nobody wants to grow old, but we get old. Nobody wants to die, but we are forced to die. Nobody wants to get diseased, but disease comes upon us. And based on our karma, we are forced to be born again. So these 4 things are happening to us. Where is the question of freedom? He says, politicians will change, but politics will not change. What is the guarantee that today you free India, 200 years down the road, maybe some other country can come and annex India, and maybe India can become again another slave? And we have seen in modern history that Iraq and so many other countries were recently annexed. Kuwait was annexed by Iraq, and then Iraq was annexed by the United States. So politicians will never change and politics will never change. So it is external, the freedom that we are talking about. The freedom that I am talking about is the freedom of the soul. That's what that sadhu told Abhay Charan. And that's the freedom that I am talking about. Freeing the soul from the material plans of being born again, being diseased. Freedom from death. Eternal freedom. So at that time, Abhay Babu realized he got defeated in his own argument. But when he went home, he was full of tears. And he told his father, "My dear father, I have found my Guru." And he surrendered to his divine grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. If you look closely on the altar, some of you are not familiar. On the left, where there is golden tie, there is the second picture next to Srila Prabhupada is his Gurudev's picture. Now, Srila Prabhupada was given this instruction. He lived a life of a family man, struggling, raising children, raising family, just like most of us. We have jobs to do, we have businesses. His business at some point had also failed. And he was struggling even to pay his rent. He was even struggling to pay even the workers in his company. And he had a big plan to make a big company. And one day as he was sitting, the lights went out. You know, as we know, the electricity sometimes fails even today in some parts of India. And he had that lantern. And under the lantern he had all these plans and these blueprints, and suddenly a wind blew and the lantern fell and all his plans got burned. So at that time, Abhay Babu realized that there is Krishna's plan. Krishna has and he quotes a wonderful verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam that Vamandev tells Bali Maharaj. Vamandev had taken everything from Bali Maharaj. So he says, Yasyaham anugrama. Whoever I am, who I bestow my kripa, I take away everything. Especially, and I give him my bhakti. So this Srila Prabhupada, after that, at the age of 50, he took to writing Bhagavad Gita translations right in his own home. And this Prabhupada, one day, he couldn't find his manuscripts because his wife sold them in exchange to get some money. In India today, here there is no value of recycled newspapers. But in India there is recycled newspapers as value. We call it Raddi for some people who understand Hindi. So you go to the store and they weigh it on a scale and they give you money for it. So his wife had sold his Bhagavad Gita handwritten transcripts to buy tea and biscuits. So Srila Prabhupada at that time got very upset and he told his wife, tea or me. It's either going to be tea or me. And his wife jokingly probably said, tea. So Prabhupada got very upset and he left the house and he never came back. And he took sannyas and he stayed in Vrindavan. And he translated books. The first canto, skand of Srimad Bhagavatam was translated in Sri Vrindavan Dham. But at that age, he had reached the age of almost 69 and he was thinking that I'm situated here in Vrindavan Dham, but I have not fulfilled the desire of my Guru Maharaj. My Guru Maharaj had instructed me to preach the glories of Mahaprabhu to the Western speaking world. So I must do that. So this Srila Prabhupada immediately, to make a long leela short because of the time, he actually went to Bombay. And Bombay he went to the Scindia Shipping Corporation and was sitting on the steps to meet the CEO, Mrs. Morarji. So that he had heard that she was a nice Vaishnavi from the Pushti Marg Sampradaya and she owned the shipping lines that actually a lot of cargo ships that were traveling from India, Europe and many places far east to the USA. So he wanted one place on one of her ships because it was to fulfill the desire of his Guru. And he was a sannyasi, bhikshu. He didn't have any money. And to meet somebody that big in the corporate world is not so easy. So he sat on the steps every day for several days in the sun, so that one day when she was going to pass, she caught him, Prabhupada met him, and seeing the sadhu, she invited him in the office and said, Swamiji, I understand your desire is to fulfill the desire of your Guru and preach about Krishna, but you are very old. This voyage of the sea is not for you. I cannot give you that. I cannot give sanctions. So Prabhupada said, no, I have to fulfill my Guru Maharaj's desire. Please, you are a Vaishnava, you should understand the position of a Guru and the Agya of a Guru, the order of a Guru. And finally she gave in and she wrote a note, and she gave a note to the captain of the ship saying that if for some reason, if he doesn't feel well enough, there is a ticket for him to come back. So Srila Prabhupada took off in 1965 during the July-August month, just before Janmashtami. People go to Vrindavan for Janmashtami, right? It's like that Prabhupada left Vrindavan. Anybody who is situated, most of the devotees desires to go to Vrindavan and spend the rest of their lives in Vrindavan. Not the other way around. But it takes a lot of compassion. Today Maharaj was saying, Vaishnavas means what? Vaishnava means, first and foremost thing is compassion. There's a lot of people who preach, and there might be different agendas for preaching, including ambition, but there is very few who preach out of pure compassion. So he left Vrindavan right just before Janmashtami, going through almost a 40-day journey in the rough seas. He encountered 2 heart attacks. He was thinking that again, if I get a third one, I will not survive. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came in his dreams that night when he had the 2 heart attacks, that don't worry, I will row this boat. And he saw that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually was taking control of that big ship, that steamship. And the calm waters became calm in the Atlantic. Finally, Srila Prabhupada arrived at the Boston harbor. Srila Prabhupada writes in one of his personal diaries that were not available until Prabhupada left his body. It's known as the Jaladutta diary. He writes in it, he writes a couple of wonderful poems. And one of the poems he says, and he writes it in his native tongue, Bengali, that my dear Sri Krishna, you have brought me to this Western world, but I'm sure you have a purpose. They have given me the title of Bhakti Vedanta, which is a very prestigious title, not an ordinary title, very scholarly, but from the Bhakti perspective. My Guru Maharaj has ordered me, and I'm here to fulfill his desire. Make me dance as you wish. I have no knowledge, although they have given me this title of Bhakti Vedanta. I am just a puppet in your hands. These people in the West, how will they understand the transcendental knowledge and the words of Srimad Bhagavatam? How will they understand that? They are full of Rajo and Tamas Guna, in the mode of ignorance and the mode of passion. But my dear Krishna, O Vasudeva, you are Jagat Guru. You will make me speak in such a way that they will understand. Please grant me such a benediction. I am a puppet in your hands. Make me dance, make me dance, make me dance. And Srila Prabhupada comes, he has 1 trunk, 1 umbrella, probably 2-3 pairs of clothes, sannyasi clothes, and a truck full of Srimad Bhagavatam. And $7 only. At that time the exchange rate was 5 rupees to $1. So 35 rupees, that's all he had. He says he didn't know where to turn, left or right. But somehow or the other, Krishna arranged. He had some connection from Mathura. He met one Agarwal family. He stayed there for a few days, but then he left for New York. And in New York, he stood under the tree in Tompkins Square Park, and he didn't even have mridang or any instruments. He just chanted, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And the young boys and girls, the hippies, they all joined. And they were chanting and dancing, and whatever instruments they had, some had guitars, some had bongos, some had all these instruments, some were high on drugs, but they got attracted to the holy name because a pure speaker of the holy name. He was giving the holy name. He didn't have anything in his heart. In exchange, he didn't want anything. One time, one student in Ohio State University challenged, Indian student, challenged Prabhupada, what is the use of this Bhagavad Gita? What is the use of this Bhagavatam? What is the use of these Vedas that you're talking about? We need technology, Swamiji. That's why we are here. So Swamiji said that I'm here to give something, not to beg. People are begging from the advanced nations, give me grains, give me technology, give me this, give me that. But I'm here to give. And that is what a compassion of a pure devotee is. So, as he chanted, people got attracted. No Indians. These are all Westerners. And then they found a small place in New York, in the most, I would say, one of the most degraded areas where gentlemen would not go. Like we know certain parts of US and big cities, you wouldn't want to venture, right? People are scared. 26 Second Avenue, there was one empty space that these hippies who loved Swamiji rented it. Some of them actually gave them the entire salary. Brahmanand Prabhu, who was Bruce Sharp at that time, he used to give, he was a school teacher, and he gave his whole salary that came. Swamiji, this is for the center. Swamiji gave classes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Bhagavad Gita classes, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And after that, Swamiji would serve prasadam. 20, 30 hippies would come. Some of them would be drugged, and especially people who are drugged or drunk, they are very hungry. And Prabhupada used to feed them. He used to personally, at the age of 70, make rotis, dal, sabji, rice, and he would serve. Some of these people used to eat, these hippies used 20 rotis. And Prabhupada would say, my dear boy, have more. Can you imagine the Mataji sitting here? If there's 30 people coming in your house and each of them is eating 20 rotis, you will be in big tension. 70-year-old man doing this. And then not only that, talking about compassion. Some of these hippies would eat to their content and then they would leave or either lie down and sleep there. And Swamiji would clean up all the pots and pans at that age, 70-year-old man. Why? Because he had a mission to fulfill. His Guru Maharaj's words, he had Mahaprabhu's mission to fulfill. So, like that, the movement slowly grew. Swamiji told these hippies, look, if you want to be serious about your spiritual life, I'm going to give you some rules and regulations. First of all, no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. These 4 things you must stay away from. Then, if you chant the holy name of Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, it will have the proper desired effect. It is not that Swamiji dreamt. There's so many Swamijis who came to the West, but they never forced this. There's no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. They said, no, you do whatever you want, but you chant this mantra. It will be okay. But Prabhupada never compromised. He never got a dream. Prabhupada gave Shastra as is. This, no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, no illicit sex is not something that he just imagined. It is from Shastra. Striyam dutam panam shunam yatra adharma chaturveda. Mahabharata says, Striyam, illicit sex, sex out of marriage. Dutam, gambling, panam, intoxication. And shunam, meat eating, yatra, these, adharma. They are counterproductive to religiosity. The opposite of dharma. Chaturveda, these 4. So this, slowly these hippies understood that this man is here to give genuinely from their heart. And they started taking the holy name. They started following the 4 regulative principles that I was just discussing. And they got initiated into the holy name. They took Diksha from Swamiji. And then in 1966, Swamiji formed the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Somebody recommended that, Swamiji, why don't you name international, this the movement movement, International Society for God Consciousness. It will attract more Westerners. It will attract more Westerners. So Swamiji said, Prabhupada said, no, Krishna, God is Krishna. And when you just talk about just God, it is sort of an impersonal. There is no personal touch. But when you use the word Krishna and when you talk about Krishna, and I am here to give and tell everybody that Krishna is God. Therefore, this society will be called International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada actually coined this wonderful phrase, Krishna Consciousness. It is never unheard of before. Everything that we do in our lives, it should be conscious in terms of Krishna. We all do normal activities, we eat. Well, why don't we offer it to Krishna? And then we take prasad. So that is Krishna consciousness. Whether we are sitting, standing, going to school, going to college, going to work, driving, we can always chant the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna consciousness. And that is why Srila Prabhupada always said, many times he said, if death were to hit you now, are you ready for it? Because Bhagavad Gita and our Shastras clearly say that whatever your consciousness is at the time of death, that is what you will achieve in your next life. So if you are able to remember Krishna, then you will achieve Krishna. Very simple formula. But then people will say, oh, very good, thank you Swamiji. So when my death comes, I will say Hare Krishna and then I will give up my body. But that will not happen. Whatever you practice most of your life, that is exactly what will happen to you at the time of death. So consciousness, whatever your consciousness, whatever your consciousness at the time of death, you will attain that. So Prabhupada said that practice this chanting of the holy name. You don't have to give up your home, you don't have to become a sannyasi. Whatever you do, put Krishna in the center, and that is why the word Krishna consciousness, and it is international, it is not meant for Indians. This is not, Krishna is not Indian property. I will end in 2 more minutes, I know time is up. Prabhupada used to give this example, right now the sun is shining over America. So can we say that the sun is American? A few hours later it will shine over Japan. Can we say that the sun is Japanese? A few hours later it will shine over India. Can we say that the sun is Indian? No. So similarly, Krishna or God, Krishna, the all-attractive, the supreme personality of Godhead, is for everyone. That is why it is international. No distinction. One time, Srila Prabhupada always used to go to Bombay, and every time he met his dear friend Dr. Bhogilal Patel. In the morning, he used to have wonderful debates with him, and in return, his disciples would get to learn a lot of things. Dr. Bhogilal Patel was very learned. He used to learn, he was learned in Vedas, in the Bible, and many others. So one time, he told Prabhupada in the morning walk that Swamiji, in the Bhagavad Gita it is said that Pandita Samadarshita, that one who is learned, a Pandit, he looks upon everybody equally, but you sometimes very harshly call some of these scientists rascals, and you use the word rascal. So Prabhupada says that is not a symptom of a Pandit. That's what Dr. Bhogilal Patel was trying to tell Prabhupada. So Prabhupada stopped in his tracks, he raised his cane, and he says, our version of Pandita Samadarshana is, and he showed his cane to all his white disciples, all the Westerners. We give Krishna consciousness freely without giving distinction. And that is why this is international. This is International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Because the Jiva is not American or Indian or European or Chinese or black or white. So that is the purpose of this movement. Again, time is short. I have to stop here. But at this moment, Prabhupada blessed all those devotees, all those Westerners. As a matter of fact, Prabhupada, when he came to India, he said, Indians love imported stuff. Right? imported cameras, imported watch. Now I'm bringing imported sadhus to teach you about Krishna. Most of the Indians say that, oh, I know about Krishna. Yes. I know about Krishna, yes. But to know about Krishna, we have to really dive deep by hearing about Krishna as is, and we can start by associating with the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, reading Srila Prabhupada's books, and you will all be blessed. And believe it or not, I am one of those examples here, being born in a Hindu family, lived in the West, in the United States for the last 28 years, and I had actually given up even bowing down before the deity, because one day some Muslim fellow told me that it is made of stone, and you're bowing down to stone. But my consciousness changed. Every time I went to the temple, I saw stone. I saw a piece of wood. But, to make a long story short, born in a Hindu family, born in a Vaishnava family, I never knew anything about Krishna besides just being one of the deities. Nothing. Zero. Barely. Going to the temple once a year on a birthday or on a Diwali day, and that's it. But when I went to ISKCON one day in Chicago, I got one beautiful book. It was free. I picked it up. It was called, the name of the book was Prabhupada. It was a concise biography of His Divine Grace. And when I read that book, I didn't put it down. I read it 3 times. And most of my questions were answered. So, this is what our movement is. This is the blessings of our pure Vaishnava. And if you want to be really happy and go beyond the bodily concept, maybe not in this lifetime, but last time, but you have to start somewhere. And you are in the right place, right school. A lot of people get distracted. So many. In Kali Yuga, there are so many people who are disturbed and they are being misguided. You go to this Swamiji, he'll tell you that. You go to that Swamiji, he'll tell you that. But Prabhupada gave us as is. That's what International Society for Krishna Consciousness is. We are celebrating the 50th anniversary. Srila Prabhupada is still present amongst us through his Vani, through his instructions. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to our wonderful movement, ISKCON movement ki, Srila Prabhupada ji ki, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you very much.